Welcome back live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Hope you're all doing well out there and enjoying the week. Our guest today, first-time guest on the show from one of our favorite locations, Newburyport High School. We love all the staff and students that visit us from over there. Molly Hogan. Hello, Molly. First time on.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Welcome aboard. You are the athletic trainer over at Newburyport, basically saving all these boys and girls who come up with bad injuries and all that stuff, right?
That is true. I'm trying my best to anyway. They give me a run for my money, that's for sure.
Is that a hard job? I would imagine it is.
It is. It is. There's good days and bad days. Some of the hardest parts are just making sure you're prepared for everything, and then somehow even you're somehow not. Things happen.
Is it like what is it? Is it the actual games themselves? Or I mean, you got to be around for practices and
so I'm there. I'm there a lot. I'm there for most of our practices. In the fall, I'm pretty much there all afternoon into the evening. But I cover all of our games at our home events anyway. It's tricky when we have things simultaneously. Like yesterday, we had basketball going on and hockey at the same time. So I get a little bit of help, which is definitely appreciated. But
can you get called to the rink and then?
I can.
Oh, man.
That's tough. When it hasn't happened, thankfully, that I've had to leave from somewhere to go to another. But it's definitely tricky where we have our venues are all spread out kind of around town.
Yeah.
Makes it harder definitely to be in all the same places at once. But there are easier parts of it too, and I get help from that people around and stuff like that. So.
What's the background? Did you go to Newburyport or? I
actually went to Pentucket. I'm a Pentucket graduate. I grew up in Merrimack.
In conference.
Yeah, exactly. So I graduated from Pentucket right before they introduced their innovation schools. So they kind of had a couple of specialized classes based in sports medicine that I could take while I was still in high school. Okay. So I kind of got an introduction to athletic training and the career that I wanted to pursue before I even got to college, which was a really incredible experience, and I'm so grateful for that. So then when I got to college, I had already had the experience of taping an ankle, being on a sideline with a team. I was comfortable in that environment where some of my classmates weren't, and it just made it so much more easier to adapt into that college setting with college athletics. And I started working with a couple of local high schools while I was in college, just fell in love with the school spirit atmosphere that I enjoyed so much being in high school, and decided that's really where I wanted to, work and try and make a difference, even though the plan before that had been professional football for so long. I just kind of, switched gears, went towards high school, and I was actually working in a physical therapy clinic when my boss came in as a patient, and found out that I was an athletic trainer, saw me doing my job in action, and said, I need one of those, come work for me. Wow. And I said, okay. And here I am, and I love it. I'm in my second year here at Newburyport. It's so cool working in the community that I grew up in, because I come across people that I knew or knew my parents that worked in Newburyport or still do. Yeah. So it's cool to be in a community that I grew up in. It makes people able to trust me that much more in an emergency situation, or when I come to them and say, this is what I need from you, this is what I need to keep these people safe. Yeah. It's makes it easier for.
And even not even emergency situations too. I remember the trainer, and I mean, I remember my trainers from high school. It was a long time ago. I mean, Becky was one of them. I remember her name, and it's because they're like your teammate.
Exactly.
Like you're no doubt about it, part of the team. Like there's when you roll an ankle. Like I remember playing tennis at one point, and the thing swelling up, and I remember our athletic trainer saying, here, try this, and gets you through. Yeah. I don't know if it would have, that was amazing. I've never really taped my ankle, and definitely not in that way professionally before.
And I love that. I love being able to help a kid who might be, down because of an injury or upset because of an injury, and looking at them and saying, this is not the end of the world. I have things that we can do to help it fix this. You might miss a game, you might miss a practice, but it's not the end of the world. We can fix it. Here are some really cool ways that we can fix it. If it doesn't work, I have a plan B. If plan B doesn't work, I have a plan C. Yeah. If that doesn't work, and
so that's what you're in it for, is to see
exactly experiment different things. No injury is ever the same as another. So even though I've got tons of tricks and up my sleeve at this point from learning from all these different people, every day I still learn something new, which is another thing that I love about this job. It keeps me on my toes.
Is there another part of it? I bet you have to play that other card too, where you're obviously, if you think it's safe, you're going to do everything you can to get somebody back out there and go live your dream, go win the game, whatever. But there's probably that other side where maybe even you have to say to a coach or something, I really don't think that he should be back out there on that. You can make it worse. Like I know that can get worse.
And that's always a hard conversation to have, especially more so when you have such respect for the athlete you're talking to, for the coach you're talking to.
Everybody respects somebody that wants to go tough it out for their teammates, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times I have the conversation with my athletes, look, if this was end of the season, we have 2 games left, there's something I can do, quick fix to get you in, play your last game ever as a senior, I'll do it. But this is the beginning of the season. This is only our 2nd game. We have a long, ways to go. We might make playoffs. I'm going to keep you for this game because we could use you later. Yeah. And that's always a hard conversation to have. But I think the way that I handle it or have handled it in the past makes my athletes more receptive to it. And they're like, okay, she's got my back. She's willing to try anything to keep me in it for longer instead of, taking me out immediately. And I've never wanted to be that kind of athletic trainer that, someone gets hurt and I say, okay, rest it for a few days, because that might not always be the best thing. We're learning more and more about active recovery and, staying moving while things are hurt in other ways. It's beneficial for your body overall. So.
You could probably do a whole show on that, I would imagine. Right?
Probably.
I always thought that was kind of weird. Like I don't know. It always seemed to me like, there's that whole adrenaline thing where, like, if you roll an ankle playing basketball, a lot of times you can get through the game and play, and it's not until you wake up the next morning or whatever and you go, okay, I can't walk, And I was like, there's going to be something to that. Like maybe, I don't know.
And I love the part of my job that I tend to get to know my athletes. Really, I like to know all of their names. I like to learn things about them, what they like to do outside of their sports, things that they like to pursue in school, what they like to study, stuff like that. And it helps me learn their reactions to injuries and stuff like that. So I can really tell when something's really bothering one of them or when it's just something you can get through the game and he'll come to me after. We'll treat it after the game or worry about it tomorrow, but he can make it through today.
It leads to conversations in those tough moments too. It's not like,
Absolutely.
you have to sit down or I'm going back in. It's,
exactly.
You can actually have a conversation with somebody.
We've been lucky this winter season where we haven't had a lot of like actual athletic injuries. We've just been dealing with illness as a school, just with all the general.
But tell me you don't have to deal with like the colds and COVID stuff, do you?
A little bit.
Really?
It's always still around. Just trying to make sure that everyone's
stays away.
Yeah, I'm not breathing on each other. Don't come to practice if you're sick. Like your team will understand, your coaches will understand.
Or work for people in the professional world.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's been kind of a hit this winter, but also having conversations with them about how to fuel your bodies properly when you're sick and how your body's taking that much more energy just to try and get healthy again, and you need a little bit more fuel before you play sports and stuff like that. And that's things that I think they don't realize that I'm there to help them with. They think I'm just there to help them stretch or give them a Band-Aid or stuff like that. So being able to open their eyes into the whole world of kind of athletic wellness and sports medicine as a whole is really, really cool, and I'm glad to see how receptive they are to it.
That's it. That's good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing I never took advantage of in high school. Like I never went for any pre-stuff. Yeah. Like I never ever would talk about like, drinking enough water, but just any of that stuff that you just mentioned.
Exactly.
Never mind water. I sound like my mother. My mother used to think water could heal everything. I kind of think she's right now.
It can. You'd be surprised.
Drink a lot of water. But there is like, the only time I ever used an athletic trainer was like if I rolled an ankle and like, can you fix me? I'm broken. But there is like a lot, so much of your job is like, come see me after practice. We can do something,
Exactly. And we had last year I had a conversation with our basketball coaches after we had a couple of sprained ankles on both teams, just like all in a row. Yeah. And I said, there needs to be something that we're doing for this as a foundation. Like your ankles are the base of your whole body, basically. All of your body weight is on this one tiny joint, which physically doesn't make any sense. You put all of this weight on this one small joint.
Oh, I don't like hearing it that way.
Right? When you think about it, when you do your daily gym routine, when I got all the kids set up, I said, how many of you work outside of your, weekly practices, weekly lifts? And a few of them raised their hand. I said, how many of you go to the gym and specifically work out your ankles? And none of them raised their hands. And I said, nobody does. Nobody has ankle day at the gym. Yeah. But you should, especially if you're playing a sport like basketball or a sport where you're pivoting or jumping, volleyball, anything like that. So I just gave them a couple basic things to do to help work out their ankles before practice. And the coaches threw it in as part of a pre-practice warm-up. And we had less and less ankle injuries.
Oh, that's good.
So stuff like that people don't really think about, just, things you can do before your sports to help you, mobilize your joints better, kids come in with lower back pain just because they don't have the core strength to help support
Yep.
the rest of their body during their sports. So just about mobilizing your joints properly before you start moving, that can help you stay healthy in the long run too.
What about like I feel like half the world is doing like yoga right now, and like but there is a lot something too. I heard LeBron James talk about it one day, like just stretching
Yeah.
those joints with
Stretching is so good for you. And even when I was an athlete, I used to say to my teams, like, they used to tease me, and I have teammates who still do, but I used to say stretching is my favorite part of life. It really is. Like, it really, really is. It's so good for you. And a lot of times I'll give my athletes stretches that actually do come from yoga or stem from yoga practices, and I'll say, you don't have to do it to the degree that this person in the picture is doing it or this instructor is doing it, because you can't. And that's okay. Start out with that, leading into that position, and the more and more that you do it, even the second time you do it after the first time, you'll stretch a little bit farther than you did the first. And the next day that you've been doing it, or the next month that you've been doing it every day, you'll get a little bit closer to the person in the picture. But I feel like people turn away from yoga and other practices like that because they assume, I can't do that. I can't do that move that person is doing, or that instructor. And it's really just about stretching your body, getting your body moving. It's not about copying the instructor.
Right. And isn't there like it seems like everybody who does that, like everybody who has yoga is a whole different thing. A lot of times that does directly lead to stronger mental states. But I do think there's something too, like freeing up, like your just stretching and feeling better about your body. Like it just makes you feel better mentally too. Like
exactly. Our body carries so much, it sounds gross, but like stagnant blood in places that just when you're not moving,
it does sound gross.
It does sound really gross. But we have different ways, like different modalities and stuff. Like we use cupping therapy at the high school on the students.
Oh, really?
They love that.
All right. So what is that? I've seen. That's like where you have the marks on your body and everything, right?
Yep. Just like we used to use the example of Michael Phelps. Of course, the high schoolers now are too young to remember when Michael Phelps was in the Olympics. Is that true?
The high schoolers too young?
Yeah, they know him as just like an old guy that used to be in the Olympics. And I was like...
That makes me an old guy who used to watch him in the Olympics.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, well, let me think of another athlete that does it more relevant to you guys. But basically the way that I like to explain it, again, bringing back to that gross stagnant blood, think of your muscles as two like layers basically, and there's something kind of sticking them together, almost like honey.
Okay. That
stagnant blood is the honey. It gets really sticky. It's really thick, viscous, hard to move around. And when you use the cupping therapy, the suction kind of pulls that up from the surface or between the muscles, allowing the muscles to glide on each other a little bit easier. And that stagnant blood just kind of goes back into the bloodstream, moves throughout the body, gets, toxins moving where they're supposed to go, stuff like that. And it helps loosen up muscles. It can help with a lot of things. Like there's so much history. It's originated back in China and Asian medicine practices, like ancient times, like really, really long times ago. And there's lots of different kinds of ways you can use cupping. You can use fire cupping, where you actually like light the glass cup on fire before you put it on someone's skin, and the heat is what draws the suction up.
Have you done that? Are you doing that?
I have. I haven't done it at the high school, but anything that we learned.
That's a whole different high school experience if that's going on.
Exactly. I don't know that they would love me bringing fire around the athletes. But everything that we learned in school, we tried on ourselves so that we were able to explain how it felt to someone else, which I also think is important. Whenever I get a new gadget, like a company, Firefly Recovery, is being introduced in professional sports right now. Tom Brady's a big fan of Firefly Recovery. A lot of collegiate sports are using them. They're basically just these little strips that go on your lower leg on your fibular head, and they stimulate your fibular nerve and get blood flowing through your entire lower body, like all at once, literally through your whole leg. And it is able to help muscles recover up to 3 times faster than you would without it.
Wow.
So a lot of professional athletes
So much
are
of this
using
stuff
that.
is blood flow in your body, huh?
Exactly, yeah. Anything about it is really just getting the blood flow, and if you're not able to move to get the blood flowing, there's other ways to do it.
Did you? I know we moved kind of fast. Did you explain the normal way of cupping already, besides the fire?
The suction, yeah. The suction just brings the air that just pulls.
What is it? Is it
skin.
like a device? Like what?
Yeah, there's like little. I want to say like a gun, but it's like it just pulls air. Basically, you like put it on this little plastic
and that's what leaves
cup.
those circular marks or whatever?
The air pulls up, and then you leave them on for a few minutes, and then you can either just leave them stationary and let them do their job, or if you really want to get in there and get some blood moving, you can move them around while they're suctioned on. It's not the most comfortable experience ever. I usually give my kids a squeezy ball before they do that.
Oh, really? It's one of those?
Have them count down. I've had a few of them like gripping the table for that. It's really not comfortable, but when you're done with it, you feel such great relief. So I great success in stuff like hamstring strains with that, lower back pain, and shoulder pain and stuff like that.
So the kids keep coming back?
They do, yeah.
Do you have like because that was definitely not, when you were in high school, was that being offered?
No, definitely not.
This is like new stuff,
Yes.
right? New.
And I think it's cool that I'm able to, bring what I learned in college, and things were, new when I was in college and learning about them. And then I'm able to bring them back to this high school setting and say, this is cool, or look at this. And then these kids will go off to collegiate athletics, and they've already had this experience, or had an experience with someone who doesn't just take them out of the game and is helping them, overall stay healthy.
Did you mention your college yet? Did I miss it?
I went to the University of New Hampshire.
Okay.
I studied athletic trainer there. I graduated in 2020 from my living room, which was sad.
Oh yeah, the pandemic graduation.
I'm a pandemic graduate, which was really, really tough. It was really tough to graduate in a time where people weren't playing sports, in a career where you work in sports, and I wasn't really sure if sports were going to happen again. So that was a really hard time to be graduating college and basically get a degree that's like, here you go, you can't do anything with this, we don't know if you ever will.
Yeah. Once I got back, was because you guys were still wearing masks.
Exactly. We wore masks for a lot of the school year last year, up until right after Christmas break.
I would imagine that. I mean, I know it's tough. Everybody has their own issues of how that was tough, but in your job, I would imagine that's tough. You're all about communication, one-on-one time with, I don't know.
It's very tough. It was tricky because there are times in my job where I should wear one, or I'm required to wear one anyway. Anytime that I really get up in an athlete's face, or I'm doing something close to their head or neck, I would wear one anyway, just because I don't feel like breathing on a person. For, professions like dentists or other doctors or nurses, where we were wearing them more often than we would, outside of COVID, but it was definitely hard to not be able to see my athletes' faces, and then when they did come back without the masks, or some of them I didn't recognize, or I had made up my own version of their face.
I had only seen your eyes.
Exactly, and I was like, oh, that's not what I thought you actually looked like. But
well, Kyle, is he your boss?
Yeah, he's my boss.
Kyle Hudson, the athletic director over at Newburyport.
I boss him around a lot.
You boss him around. You probably have to have that. I'm in control here. But he was once saying, like, the new batch of freshmen, whatever year that was, he was like, I literally only know them from like their nose up. He's like, it's weird, like, to say that, but they don't. You're not supposed to take your mask off, and they don't.
Right.
So
it was really strange. The first day back in January last year, it was like the first day of school all over again. We had to like get to know everybody all over again, based on the rest of their face, which was really hard. And it's hard also in athletics because my job is to keep everyone safe. So I'm trying to enforce wearing masks because this is what's keeping us safe right now.
I mean, I know that's not in the. When you left college, I know that wasn't going to be in their job description.
Exactly,
Make sure if somebody wears their mask 24/7.
Exactly.
But I bet pretty much every teacher had to like kind of take on that responsibility, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard when, you're watching kids struggle playing sports in masks. Before I was in Newburyport, I was in New Hampshire, which was the only state to have wrestling that year during COVID. The school I was working at was still wrestling, and I found one of the rules so silly. They wouldn't let them shake hands before they wrestled because of COVID.
Yeah.
But they were literally about to wrestle each other, but shaking hands was too much.
Oh, yeah.
So
I hit my head on the microphone laughing at that one. Okay.
They were wearing masks while they wrestled, and I had two athletes. They had nosebleeds in both nostrils. And usually that's a quick fix for wrestling. You just shove a nose plug up there and send it back out there. But it was both nostrils, and then they weren't staying in, so we had to tape them in, actually wrap tape all the way around their face to tape these nose plugs in their nostrils, and then told them to put their masks back on and go out and wrestle. And I was like, there is no way they can possibly breathe right now. This has got to be insane. Or watching kids, sprinting and wearing masks and stuff like that. It was tough to watch, knowing I have to make you do this to keep other people safe, including me. But it's
I know
hard.
how much of a pain.
I know how much of a pain it is, and I hate watching you struggle and stuff like that. And just, overall happiness and motivation, productivity went down, which is hard. And it's hard to see the good and the bad in both of it. But overall, masks keep us safe. So that was my job to enforce them. But I do see the downside of, education loss and kids not participating in sports because they don't want to wear their masks or stuff like that.
Certainly heard all sorts of those stories. Again, Molly Hogan joining us, I almost said the athletic director. I have Kyle on the mind now, the athletic trainer over at Newburyport. What is the? I'm sure you've seen some bad stuff. What's What's the hardest? It doesn't even have to be like the worst gruesome injury, but is there like maybe the timing of it or something?
We
What's
love this question.
You do?
We get this question all the time.
Some of the stuff you didn't think was going to make me cringe has already made me cringe. So as I said it, I was like,
I did see a pretty bad femur fracture. I was actually still in high school when it happened.
I don't like the sound of that.
I won't go into too much detail, but it was a pretty gruesome one that typically the mechanism is usually from a car accident or something like that level of force, and this came from another person. So it wasn't great to see, but I think actually probably the scariest thing that I have seen didn't actually happen to me personally, but it was what happened just a couple of weeks ago with Damar Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills. To watch that, knowing the protocols, because I've practiced them, it's hard to watch someone go into action and know exactly what they're doing and why.
Yeah. Did you knew right away?
I did.
Yeah.
And
as soon as you hear what CPR.
As soon as you see them pull, a couple of motions, there's certain hand signals that we give to people on the field, whether or not we need a stretcher, a doctor, or an ambulance. To see them give those signals, to just kind of see the face of all the athletic training staff shift immediately. You know something's not right. And a lot of people always ask athletic trainers why they have a towel on their bag. It's not to clean up water or sweat or spills or anything like that. It's most of the time, and my kids love this, if I have a towel on my bag, it's so that I can quickly rip it off and cover something I don't want people to see.
Really?
Something gruesome, a bone sticking out somewhere, blood flying everywhere, like something I don't want people to see, either the athlete experiencing it or people in the crowd.
So that's a widespread thing. That's not just
a widespread thing. If you ask any athletic trainer why they carry a towel on their bag, I guarantee that'll be the answer.
Really?
Having it for spills, water, stuff like that is also a bonus, but that's usually why. In hockey, it's there so that you can put it under your knee so you don't slip on the ice. I wear little studded boots on my boots over at the graph so I don't slip, but everyone always still offers to skate me out.
Did kids, I mean, I know it's not football season, but I mean, sports are still being played. Did you notice any, I'm sure, I mean, that affected me. I stayed up for 3 hours longer than I meant to just because I was in shock. I'm sure kids did the same thing at the high school level. Was there any talks about that in the?
There was. So I kind of expected kids to have a reaction to it. And I had posted on my Instagram page, how thankful we were that the athletic training staff were there and how fortunate we are at Newburyport High School because we have 12 AED units, automatic external defibrillators, that we're able to distribute to all of our teams so that we are prepared for something like this. And a lot of the schools in this area, a lot of schools in the country do not have the same luxury. So I just kind of made a point about how we're really lucky to have that. And I wanted my kids to take note of where it is, where their coach has it, where it is in the gym, where it is in the rink, stuff like that, look around, just to kind of be aware of it. And I didn't expect the next day at school, so many of them to come into my office before sports just to say, can we talk about it? Did you know what was happening? I have some questions.
Oh, really?
And I was glad that they felt that they could come to me and talk about this. Obviously, that's why I'm here. Like, I want to keep you safe, and keeping your brain safe and healthy is also part of that. So I was so
What were the
grateful.
questions?
A couple of them asked, like, did you know what they were doing? Why didn't they have to ask him any questions about what was hurt? Because that's usually something I do when I go out to them and ask them, what hurts? What's going on? Can you talk to me? They said they just knew what to do. They knew what hurt. How did they know without asking him?
Yeah.
And they said, do you usually know before you ask us? And I say, sometimes, but I still ask you so that I can get to know and, get your perspective on it, what happened. One of them said, I was watching it and I thought about what you would do. And that almost made me start crying. And then he said, and then I thought how you would do it by yourself, because he's right. It is just me. I don't have a team of 12 other people out there around me to help me with this CPR incident. So the fact that they were kind of aware of, like, oh, there's someone that's there for me if this ever happens to me, but how is she going to do it by herself? At the same time, like, they were kind of thinking about this. And then they thought, what do we do if you're not here at practice? And I told them, and I ran through it with them, and we talked about what to do, and I walked them through the gym, and I said, this is where the AED is if you're in the gym, or if you're in the weight room. This is where it is if you're out on the turf, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, okay, now we know. And they asked, how can we get CPR certified? I said, you can do it for free online through the National CPR Foundation. You could take a class through one of our high school classes through Health and Wellness Department. A couple of our sophomore classes get CPR certified through that class. You could do it through the American Red Cross. Like, there are lots of different ways you can make it happen. But it just made me so glad that they were willing to take a step to help keep someone else safe.
Yeah, it's like you're a little spooked because it's like, I can't believe these kids had to see that and deal with that. But it's also a good thing. Like, okay, they're trying to, take a measure maybe if you're not there.
So like touched, but also just like glad that they felt that they could come and talk to me about it, and that so many of them did. There was like 20 or 30 of them that came to talk to me that day about it, or just sent me messages like, hey, thinking about you, or hey, I saw what happened, it was scary, or stuff like that. And the fact that they recognize that that's what I do, that's my job, I'm not just here to get them water or ice bags or stuff like that. So that was really cool for me to see, also because I feel like a lot of times people avoid the athletic trainer because they're going to take you out, or they're just here to give you ice. And the fact that I have such a special relationship with mine is what makes me love my job.
So they gained a whole new, it seemed like they had a whole pretty good solid respect for you anyway, but you think that even got taken up a level? They gained a whole new respect for you?
Yeah, which I'm glad.
Yeah, that is cool. You must have gained, it must make you smile being in that profession, seeing like him walking around again.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
It's like, think about all the work. Like everybody said, like the work that was done on the field that night was like amazing.
So glad.
Like life-saving, really.
Yeah. And I saw a great piece about how people want to call it a miracle, and it certainly does feel like one, but in reality, it's science. Yeah. And in so many different ways, science can be a miracle a lot of the times, but it was because they had a plan in action, because the right people were there to help, because they'd practiced this, because the science had shown what to do, that this was able, to happen. That's the most,
I know you hope to, never have to do that, but it is what you're in it for too. Like, you want to be the person there when it happens, right? That's part of what drives you in it.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, it's an intense job.
It is, for sure.
Very good. Any quirks of the season so far? Is it so far smooth in the winter season here? Or?
The winter season is a little bit more quiet. I'm not rushing out to get to the field in the afternoon because we have shared gym time in the winter. So kids are...
It's like one sport at a time.
Exactly. We have one
not
sport
football
at
field,
a time.
just soccer team.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the fall, it's definitely a lot more chaotic. In the winter, it's a little bit more laid back and chill, and kids are kind of in my office just to be in there, which I don't really mind. I tell them all we have a sign that has the rules on the wall, and rule number 1, this is not a clubhouse. Yeah. And then underneath that it says, I want you to feel comfortable, but also get lost.
Just because coach is making you run doesn't mean you can...
Exactly. Yeah. So I had ones that come in, the day before a track meet. Can you tell coach that it hurts my knee when I run in the specific oval of a track? I was like, yeah, okay. He's going to believe that one.
Get back out there.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you tell coach that I have really bad blisters so I can't run? Can you tell coach that my nose is bleeding so I can't run? Like,
None of those things are true.
Exactly. And then I tell him, if you don't want to run track, don't sign up for track.
Yeah. But, what is the funniest excuse you've had? Or like just caught red-handed? Nope.
I don't even know.
I feel like some are flashing. And
There's always great ones. I feel like that one the other day was the best one. Can you tell coach that my knee only hurts when I run in that specific shape of a track oval? Because
is he kidding? He or she?
He doesn't have they don't have a knee injury at all. Not injured at all, just didn't want to run at the race.
Well done, kids.
Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I think I learned a lot today. That was very good. It was nice to meet you, Molly Hogan.
Me.
Yes, it was good. I hope you enjoyed it. First time on the show. We should do this again. Kyle had mentioned this to me. He said, I bet Molly would be a great guest because we've never had the athletic.
Always love to advocate for athletic training.
We should do this again. You got the Clippers shirt on. That's good.
I do. Yes, I do.
And excellent. So we learned a little bit about you and about all the stuff you have to deal with. You really are. I always say it's. In many ways, you're more important than the coaches on some days, right? And you got to give it up for them too, because I assume you have pretty good relationships with the coaches.
I do.
So.
Yes, I love all my coaches. They're great.
If you didn't, that would make your job very miserable. It would.
It would make it very, very hard. No, they have a great respect for me. I think they appreciate the way that I do my job and get things done.
Well, good job, coaches. Good job, Molly. Good job, Kyle. we know Kyle's. You're really bossing Kyle around, so that's good. Molly Hogan, thanks very much for joining us. Athletic trainer over at Newburyport High School. We will do this again someday because I feel like we could go in a bunch of different directions too. So,
probably.
Exactly. There's a lot to talk about in the medical world. Sarah Blackstone, Sarah Hayden, our small but mighty crew here in Newburyport. We appreciate you as always. Thanks for making the show run like you always do. My name is Drew Moholland, live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Peace.